Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Dustin Jackson.
Oh boy, Dustin's in the house.
I'm in the hizzy, we like to say.
We do like to say that because we are so hip. And, you know, when we're talking about hip and DKU characters who are hipper than hip even, immediately the mind comes to one figure. No, not Swanky Kong. No. I think of a character who is so hip he's gone back around to being square again. I think of a character who's always been near and dear to the hardcore DKU fandom and rare diehards' heart, but is mostly unknown to the larger Nintendo community. However, after he was spotted in the background of the Ring of Kong poster and art assets for the Super Mario Bros. Movie, there has been some renewed interest. On this episode of The Kongversation, we're discussing the life history of Swanky Kong.
Oh my goodness. You know, Hyle, when I think of the DKU characters that I wish were my dad, Swanky Kong's at least in the top 20.
I don't think I would want Swanky Kong to be my dad, really. I think that would be a very disappointing childhood.
Well, Dad's off to give bananas and balloons off to people again.
Yeah. Dad smells of aqua velva. And
what else is new?
And he's hitting on the neighbor lady. No, this episode, I want to clarify, because I did mention the Super Mario Bros. Movie and how Swanky, we peeped Swanky in that crowd shot, but we will not be going into the movie. We will not be discussing if Swanky actually appears in the movie. No spoilers one way or another here. Because we've been planning this episode of The Kongversation since before the movie was even out, like weeks before. And then the Donkey Kong Freedom leaks started getting out there, and I was like, I've got to quickly do an episode about this to reveal everything that I know. And that forced us to push this episode back until the week after the Super Mario Bros. Movie. So that's why we're doing it now. Nothing to do with the movie. If you haven't seen it, there's no context here for it other than we know he was on that poster. He was in the art assets. So it renewed our excitement for Swanky Kong. And I'm always excited about Swanky Kong. Don't get me wrong, Dustin. I don't want you to think I'm not a dyed-in-the-wool Swanky-aholic, but character witness episodes of The Kongversation have usually, not always, but usually been reserved for characters with a robust library of appearances. You know, characters who have actually had some character development over the years and have grown and evolved. Characters like Conquer the Squirrel. Characters like Funky Kong, the aforementioned Funky Kong. Characters like Diddy, Dixie, Cranky, K-Rool, you know, just the top shelf beloved characters that are essentially household names. We also did an episode on Mr. Patch from Banjo-Tooie, and that was because we lost a bet. But other than that, you know, it's Banjo. Banjo was a character we did. You know, it's been pretty much A-listers or upper echelon B-listers. Swanky Kong, despite looming large in my heart, despite a large palatial honeymoon suite in my heart for Swanky Kong, he is not exactly in that top tier. He's in fact been mostly forgotten since the buyout. And in fact, a couple of years before the buyout even, Swanky hasn't been in a full new game aside from his appearance as a spirit in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate since 1996. So this kind of breaks the mold a little bit for character witness, but where he may lack in appearances, I definitely think there is, if not character development, then twists and turns of the character in his limited appearances that warrants doing this episode. And the idea came to me like way back when I saw him in that Coliseum, in that crowd shot, and I was like, you know, we could do a character witness for Swanky Kong. It's not out of the realm of possibility. And so that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing this episode. It is a celebration of the in-universe history for Swanky Kong. So I hope you all enjoy. But before we get to that, really quick, I do want to plug the newest, hottest Twitch affiliates on twitch.tv. Who's that? Why, it's DK Vine. That's right. We are now Twitch affiliates. How did that happen? I don't know, because we certainly didn't try, but we stumbled into it, and so, you know, I have long lamented how YouTube demonetized us and how I've never been able to rectify that. Their algorithm demonetized us for reasons we suspect being that they don't think we own the Kongversation podcast that we also put up on YouTube, which is funny now that YouTube has a whole section devoted to podcast and the Kongversation is automatically included in that. However, their algorithm came for us and went chomp, chomp, chomp and bit us on the ass. And so we haven't been getting any ad revenue from YouTube. But thankfully, our new friends at Twitch have decided they like what we're selling. And so we are Twitch affiliates now. We don't stream every day. We're not these hardcore bearded streamers who, you know, stream Sea of Thieves 15 hours a day, you know, go potty on camera or whatever they do. I don't know how they do it. It's disgusting, quite frankly. We stream about 3 times a week on a good week, right?
Right. We still go to the bathroom on camera, but not as often.
No, and you know, we don't appear on camera on Twitch. We like the games to be the focus, and so we can go tinkle or ploppy plop without anyone being the wiser. It's a really
they can just use their imagination.
Yeah, it's a really great setup. It's a win-win for everyone because you can imagine it any way you want. And we can relieve ourselves. But no, we stream about 3 times a week. But the catch for DK Vine is that it's all DKU related. That's right. Like, I stream DK Vine Done Slow, usually on Wednesdays, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. BST. And right now I'm playing Mario Kart 64 as part of DK Vine Done Slow.
Are you enjoying it so far?
So I actually had a good time on Wednesday. Streamed it for a little over 2 hours. You know, the very first Cameo game, the very first appearance of Rare's Donkey Kong outside of Rare.
Right.
And
I'm glad.
Very influential, a fundamental building block to what eventually got us to the Super Mario Brothers movie. So it's fun. I just streamed like an over 18-hour all told series on Donkey Kong Country 3, which was the most enjoyable DK Vine Done Slow I've ever done. Really had fun rediscovering DKC 3. I do that on Wednesdays. On Sundays, we stream Sea of Thieves every Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. BST. And that's just a few-hour voyage amongst friends, DK Vine staff, and some of our close-knit friends in the community. And if you've never played Sea of Thieves, but you want to witness it through familiar eyes you trust, then watch that, because it's a nice little adventure by proxy in Rare's latest game. And then Tuesday nights, Dustin, you are part of the Idaho crew who take over our Twitch channel Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Idaho time. What do you do on the Idaho crew streams?
Well, we just play whatever DKU game is striking our fancy that week. Lately, we've been at the tail end of our Banjo-thon. We thought we were going to finish World of Light and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but boy, we did not.
No, that's unfortunate, because I've been telling everybody you did finish.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Because you almost streamed for 6 hours Tuesday night, and I was like, surely they streamed that long because they were at the end and they just wanted to get it done with.
Yeah, that was the plan, but boy, I get better luck next time, huh?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you have cooked up next. What's coming after the Banjo-thon?
Oh, me too. We have some stuff lined up. I think we have some surprises coming up after this one.
There was talk of a Conquer-thon potentially at some point, which whetted my appetite because, Dustin, you have never played Conker's Pocket Tales.
I haven't. I mean, I've played, like, here and there, I've played, like, a few minutes worth, but I've never, like, actually played through it. I'd really like to. We were kind of joking about a Conquer-thon, but I'd be up for it. It's not like it would be a huge commitment.
No, there's less Conquer games than there are Banjo games, although you would have to break out Project Spark, which might get dicey.
See, I wanted to suggest we do a Grab by the Ghoulie-thon.
Well, that means, I mean, potential, like, if that's including Grab by the Ghoulies references, you would also have to just replay Nuts and Bolts again, because that has a load of Nuts and Bolts references. Viva Pinata.
Forget I said anything.
Yeah, well, anyway, I do tune in on Tuesday nights. I'm usually there for the early parts. Sometimes, I'm like, all right, Hyle needs to go Betty bye. But, I'm there in the chat. I'm ribbing ya. I'm Mr. Ribbing ya.
Oh, we always appreciate it.
So we're actually making money from Twitch. Not a lot of money. It's not like we're subsiding off of it. It's not like we're living off of it. But eventually, we might have a little bit of a nest egg build up. And so, make sure you follow us on Twitch. And hey, if you subscribe, you get ad-free viewing, which, if you've been complaining about the ads, we're still trying to work out the volume of ads, but if you just want to get rid of them entirely, subscribe. Anyway, that's twitch.tv/DKVine. The primary way DKVine supports itself, and we keep independent Donkey Kong journalism going, we keep the dream alive, is, of course, our Patreon. So if you want to support us financially directly without, watching ads for, like, the U.S. Air Force or whatever Twitch throws your way, then just go to Patreon, dkvine.com/Patreon. And if you want to give us money, but you want to have something physical to show for it, well, we also have a merchandise store. That is at dkvine.com/merchandise, or you can just find us on TeePublic, which is where we are housed. We got all sorts of, I was going to say great shirts. I don't know if they really qualify under greats. They are interesting shirts that you won't find anywhere else.
Interesting is the better word for it.
Well, look, Dustin. These are shirts I've always wanted. I mean, a Royston religious iconography shirt, inspired by Royston. It says Royston on it. I don't know why I'm getting cagey about it, but yeah. I don't think I would wear that, but I'm happy it exists.
Yeah, the store is about bringing dreams to life.
That's right. I do have a few of our shirts. I have the Kong College shirt, collegiate style. I have the Stop and Swap shirt, checklist for Banjo-Kazooie. I have the Kongversation Season 10 shirt with our pirates on it. Really like that one. Anyway.
That's a fun one.
So yeah, I'm not just the owner, I'm also a client. Remember that hair club for men? What was that?
I remember. Believe you me. I'm not a customer.
No.
I haven't bought any shirts yet, but I'd like to.
Yeah, somebody bought an Idaho Crew shirt, so.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Somebody did. So anyway, check us out on TeePublic. Oh, yeah. So, Dustin.
Hello.
Hi. I want to take you back, and I want to take our audience back back to the early days of the DKU and Rare's Donkey Kong, the modern Donkey Kong series, as it began in 1994 and then into 1995. Back when there were only 5 Kongs. I know.
No way.
I know. It seems absurd that there was ever that small amount. There was also Manky Kongs, but we're not, lumping them into this. 5 main singular Kongs. There were the 2 playable heroes, Donkey Kong and his protege, Diddy. And there were also 3 supporting Kongs who helped them along the way. There was Cranky, the disapproving father figure. There was Funky, the bodacious best friend. And Candy, the gorilla pinup girlfriend. The eye candy if you're into that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. Who could forget?
Yes. So all 3 had very defined roles as to how they related back to Donkey Kong, right? Father/grandfather, best friend, girlfriend. Got it. Bam. Easy. Easy to understand who these people are. Now, this was only the status quo for about a year. But given the lack of material there was for this soft rebooted Donkey Kong series, there were only 2 games, Donkey Kong Country and then Donkey Kong Land several months later. So what little we had to go on loomed large in the imagination, especially if you fell head over heels in love with Donkey Kong Country like I did. If you were a child in 1994 and this game came out and just completely obliterated your interest in any other video game, and you just wanted to know more about this world, you were constantly thinking about this world, Donkey Kong Land really accelerated that too, where all of a sudden you had a little bit more context for the world, and you kind of understood a little bit more, but you still only had a limited selection of characters. I mean, Commuter Kong never made it into Donkey Kong Land, so we only had a couple new boss characters, some more henchmen for K. Rool, but that game really didn't add anything new in the realm of the heroes. We had 5 Kongs and 5 animal buddies, for that matter. So those characters and their relations to Donkey Kong were kind of cemented, and you rolled them over in your head quite a bit. Now, put yourself in the mindset. Go back in time to the weekend before Donkey Kong Country 2 came out here in the United States.
Whoa!
The weekend before DKC2 came out, it was early December, because we didn't get it until like the first week of December, because they pushed it back a couple of weeks. And I've been trying to find clarification on why that is. It's seldom remembered. In fact, a lot of websites don't carry this information. Some do, but others just take the Japanese release date as the universal worldwide release date, and it is not. We got it somehow late, somehow like beyond Black Friday, first week of December, but the anticipation for it was just astronomical. Like, I think I might have anticipated other games after the fact a little bit more, like Donkey Kong 64, for sure. Like, Donkey Kong 64 I'd been waiting for so long in comparison, but DKC2, there had never been a game like this for me where I had the release date committed to memory. I had it, reserved and ready to go. I was just all about the release for this game. It wasn't like, oh, I'll get it for my birthday, or I'll get it for Christmas, or some other holiday. It was for my birthday, but this was the first time where I made the sacrifice. My birthday, November 22nd, I was like, I do not want a present on my birthday because I want my present to be Donkey Kong Country 2. So that's how badly I wanted this. A child foregoing a birthday present on the day of their birthday.
Man.
All that mattered was
I
DKC2.
I wish I could have been there. I didn't have a Super Nintendo growing up. I feel like if I did, I would have been right there with you.
I think even if you weren't, it's a relatable scenario to be in. I think we've all had something like this. And anybody listening to the conversation probably has intense passion for one of the Donkey Kong Country games, at least. So you can readily put yourself in this position.
Yeah.
But the weekend before DKC came out was also magical because that Friday was when we got Nintendo Power in the mail. And that was the cover issue for Donkey Kong Country 2. Their December 95 issue was Donkey Kong Country 2. It had an expansive featured article on the game. And, you know, this was the third entry in Rare's broader Donkey Kong series in the DKU. And the first to make good on introducing new Kongs. Now, we had already known about Dixie Kong way back in the summer when this game was announced, and that was exciting at the time. Like, the girlfriend of Diddy and his new adventuring partner, whoa! Like, whoa, we have another monkey in the bunch. This is amazing. But we had gotten used to it, right? Like, we had already committed Dixie to memory and into our hearts.
Right.
And, you know, off the limited information we had, at least via Nintendo Power, and, you know, like I wasn't online at the time. I wasn't getting, you know, direct news as it broke. So a lot of my information was, you know, after the fact published in these magazines. And I had just assumed that Donkey Kong Country 2 would have, once again, Cranky, Funky, and Candy. I thought they would all be back. Because why wouldn't they be? I mean, this was the direct sequel to Donkey Kong Country 2 a year later. Sure, they've changed things up by having Donkey Kong get kidnapped by the Kremlings, but, you know, why wouldn't those three be back? Somebody's got to save the game. Somebody's got to, you know, rent planes to you. Somebody's got to give tips for the first world.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just have a game that saves itself.
Right. So I got my Nintendo Power the Friday before. And by the way, like when I say the Friday before, this is before games had strict release dates. Back then, unless it was like a major console release, like the N64, there weren't any release dates. It would be when stores would get them in. So you would have this nebulous range from Monday through Wednesday back then of when stores would start getting their stock. And then they could immediately sell them. They wouldn't be keeping them in their stock room or anything. It was a lot more just of a free-for-all, really.
It was the Wild West.
It was. They weren't afforded the same luxury that high-profile books or music albums are given, right? Video games were still considered toys at best.
Right.
So, you know, that would change relatively quickly, and I think stores like GameStop actually helped implement that change, probably pushing for it. So stores like the like big box stores like Walmart wouldn't be undercutting them. But this was still the time when, I could be getting this game on Monday. I could be getting this game on Wednesday. Probably going to get it on Tuesday. That's usually what happens. And I have the whole weekend to daydream about it and look through this Nintendo Power and study every little detail they provide. And, oh my God, to my surprise, Dustin, there were going to be both new Animal Buddies and new Kongs. And not all Animal Buddies or Kongs would be returning in this game. So,
wow.
Yeah, like, that was just, it was just shock after shock leafing through these pages and seeing these renders of these characters. I'm like, who the fuck is this? Who is this old lady? Oh my God, is that Cranky's wife? It is Cranky's wife. Yes, Wrinkly Kong, Cranky's previously unseen wife and Donkey Kong's maternal figure. It made complete sense because, yeah, where was she? Like, she might have been dead in Donkey Kong Country. I know Cranky had a line of dialogue about Mrs. Kong. I forget if it was actually in the original Super Nintendo version or if that was added in the Game Boy Advance version. I think it was in there, but it doesn't come up often. Maybe it was only in some regional versions of it, but yeah, Wrinkly Kong. Holy shit. All right, awesome. Donkey Kong's maternal figure. I understand her relation to the others.
Right.
And then there's this other guy. This bozo, this clown. Swanky Kong, a sleazy game show host? What? So, of course, these days, we've been through quite a lot as a fandom, and we're plenty desensitized to Kongs just being Kongs, and there not needing to be a rhyme, reason, or familial connection back to our primary heroes. In Donkey Kong 64, Tiny was kind of smuggled in as Dixie's sister. Chunky was introduced as Kitty's older brother. But Lanky was just a guy who's seemingly just along for the ride. Here's this orangutan. Speaking of clowns, he's got a clown nose on his face. He farts. And he's Lanky Kong. He plays the
everything
trombone.
you could possibly want in a character.
Yeah, okay, Lanky Kong, sure. Who is he? Doesn't fucking matter. He's Lanky Kong. You're gonna love him. Jungle Beat, after the buyout, introduced Dread Kong, Karate Kong, Ninja Kong, and Sumo Kong, who are actually antagonists, and then sort of became begrudging allies to Donkey Kong by the end of the game. And of course, just the entire idea of a Kong civilization where everyone has the surname of Kong, that's always been DK Vine's interpretation of the canon of how Donkey Kong Island and the Rare Archipelago works. I mean, we were calling Konga and Chimpy from Banjo-Kazooie Konga Kong and Chimpy Kong before it was cool, man. I
remember that.
We still
I remember. I thought that was official for a long time.
No, we were going rogue. We were just coloring outside the lines. We were like, Greg Mayles, you said what? Well, we say this.
Guess what? They're Kongs now.
But you know what, Dustin? I would say, even though the Super Mario Brothers movie isn't canon, in all the promotional materials, they have been pushing this idea of a Kong civilization. So, I feel a little vindicated. I feel a little validated. Just a little bit.
Right. Who's to say there's not a Konga Kong or Chimpy Kong in there somewhere?
Because they're such great names when you add Kong to it. Konga by itself, what? But Konga Kong? Oh, yeah.
Now we're talking. Now we have a grade A video game character.
That gorilla's parents were brilliant. And Chimpy Kong? He's a monkey. Let's name him Chimpy.
Oh, perfect. See, that's how you get spin-off potential.
If I had a child, I would name them Orangutan. And then they would be like, are you sure you want to name your child Orangutan? Your child's a human. I'd be like, close enough.
Good enough. Don't worry about it.
So anyway, yeah, but 1995, late 1995, even if we had this idea that every ape and monkey on Donkey Kong Island had the surname of Kong, that the Kong was more of a clan designation over a literal family, because of course that seemed to be the case already, because we had Diddy the monkey, and we had Candy Kong, who was Donkey Kong's girlfriend. Unless there's some sort of ancestral V.C. Andrews Flowers in the Attic type situation going on, they're probably not related. Kong probably means just we are of the Kongs. We are these intelligent simians living on Donkey Kong Island, and we all take the name Kong to signify that. So, we're not mistaken for your common zoo apes, right?
Right.
Yeah. And of course, there's all this lore. I mean, that would be a good episode eventually, really getting into what we know of the actual video game history of the Kongs, but maybe some other time. That's kind of besides the point now. We're talking about Swanky. That's what we're talking about. But Swanky Kong? How does this ridiculous looking game show host wearing the cheesy 70s jacket, how does he factor into anything? This very emotional storyline of Donkey Kong getting captured by a crocodile pirate. Oh, like, obviously his mother figure is going to be there because, my little boy has been taken. My Donkey Kong, who I raised as a son, has been abducted. I want to lend a hand. Funky Kong, best friend, he's there. Cranky Kong, same deal as Wrinkly. Candy, she was MIA in the SNES version, so we thought she was too emotionally distraught to go on the voyage, but Swanky Kong, this game show host, why is he lending a hand? Well, we've never actually got any canonical information on this. Why Swanky is there, why he has a connection to the other Kongs. There's actually nothing in the concrete canon, in games, instruction booklets, Rare's vintage website. There is nothing to suggest any of this. However, we do have fan conjecture. And oh boy, where would DK Vine be without fan conjecture?
Probably dead.
Yeah, we would have been closed up by 2001 at the earliest. Yeah, what do you mean I can't call him Konga Kong? No, I'm deleting our website. So, there are a few possibilities. When I say a few possibilities, there's one major possibility for Swanky's identity if we are to look at the pre-DKU Donkey Kong series, the pre-Rare days of the arcade era. However, we won't find anything in the actual 3 arcade games. We have to look at the side titles that were released for the Nintendo Entertainment System, specifically one, the only one I'm talking about, Donkey Kong Jr. Math. Dustin, are you familiar at all with Donkey Kong Jr. Math?
I'm familiar with Donkey Kong Jr. and I'm slightly familiar with math.
Well, just imagine that peanut butter getting in that chocolate.
No way, that's two great tastes that taste great together.
Yeah, except I'm bad at math. And Donkey Kong Jr. is my favorite of the arcade trilogy. I've never played Donkey Kong Jr. Math because it came out as a NES launch title. And by the time I got an NES, which, I'm not old enough to have been there at launch. The NES was around for a pretty long time by console lifespans. I think, like, the Switch might outdo it possibly, but the NES was really, it was Nintendo's financial foothold in the West, and they waited a bit to launch the Super Famicom over here as the SNES, and so there was a long period of time where the NES was it. And they didn't want to go to the next generation because, well, so many people have invested in this. Will we be like shooting ourselves in the foot if we have a newer console? I mean, it's charming to think how quaint that is, but that was the fear. But anyway, so by the time I got an NES, this was like several years after launch, and I don't think you could find Donkey Kong Jr. Math on the store shelves at all. Not that I would have been interested in at the time. The first Donkey Kong game I played was the combo Donkey Kong Classics that bundled the abridged NES Donkey Kong arcade game with the Donkey Kong Jr. Port for the NES, and that was my introduction to Donkey Kong. And I loved gorillas even as a child, and so that's what drew me to it. I was like, "Whoa, Mario's in this game with gorillas? What?" And
where do I sign up?
Yeah, and I didn't really like the original Donkey Kong because you were fighting the gorilla, but I loved Donkey Kong Jr. because you got to play as the gorilla's son.
Yeah, now we're talking.
And then I played as Donkey Kong Jr. in Super Mario Kart when I rented that. And then a year later, I was done because Donkey Kong Country came out and nothing mattered anymore.
Who cares about this Mario guy?
Anyway, I've never played Donkey Kong Jr. Math, and I can only go off of what I've seen on the YouTubes, reading up on your various wikis. And I do know there is a somewhat infamous character in Donkey Kong Jr. Math, because there are two playable characters in Donkey Kong Jr. Math. Can you tell me who those characters are, Dustin?
In Donkey Kong Jr. Math, it looks like you have Donkey Kong himself at the top, but you also have, along with Donkey Kong Jr., you have a separate Donkey Kong Jr. who is pink.
Yeah, so Donkey Kong is not playable in Donkey Kong Jr. Math. Donkey Kong Jr. is playable in Donkey Kong Jr. Math, as is a character who is only listed as Junior 2. Otherwise known as the pink Donkey Kong Jr. So who is Junior 2? We don't know. Now, Donkey Kong Jr. Math is where Donkey Kong Sr., aka the young Cranky, is teaching his son mathematics through tactical, hands-on learning. He's teaching it via climbing up chains. And I don't know what he's doing really, but he's. This is probably thinking about it, a lesson plan that Wrinkly Kong devised and gave to Cranky to teach Donkey Kong Jr. Okay, I'm going to teach you the maths today, son. This is something your mom thought would work well on you and your how you absorb knowledge. But he was also teaching this secondary character, this second Donkey Kong Jr. And who might that be in the canon? Well, it's never been clarified. It's never been explained. They didn't think it deserved an explanation. Oh, they're just two Donkey Kong Juniors. Deal with it, you stupid kids. You stupid kids who don't even know math.
Yeah, what do you think you're doing questioning us on this? You got to learn plus 74.
This is still the era where, Luigi is just player 2. We don't really need to define who Luigi is. At least they gave him a different name other than Green Mario, or
right.
But I like the idea, and I'm not arguing that this is canon, but I think it actually syncs up well. It works well that Donkey Kong has a brother. Our modern Donkey. Okay, let me clarify, because this is already a controversial point. Even more controversial these days, given that this is a renewed controversy. I and a lot of DK Vine believe that the modern Donkey Kong is an adult Donkey Kong Jr. Now,
yeah, I think that's the best explanation.
I think a lot of people think it's the best explanation. I know some people hold fast and true to know the modern Donkey Kong is Donkey Kong Jr.'s son. I don't think that really adds up when you look at various factors, not the least of which that all the materials state that Cranky raised the modern Donkey Kong. So if the modern Donkey Kong is Donkey Kong Jr.'s son, what you're saying is Donkey Kong Jr. sired a child, and then something happened to him. Something dark.
Yeah.
At best, he's dead, or he's just missing.
Yeah, at best.
He went hiking in the wilderness in Vine Valley, and he never came back. his cell phone was found in his car, but he was never tracked down. But at worst, then he skipped town. He like had a child, gave it to Cranky and Wrinkly, and was like, "Yo, I'm out of here." He drove
See ya,
off.
I'll be back when you need someone in Mario Kart.
Yeah, and they never called him back because they had Diddy by that point. They pulled a time displaced version of him from the Chest of Time, but they didn't. Yeah. So I think it's just simpler and cleaner to say that yes, Cranky Kong has been stated to be Donkey Kong's grandfather. He's also been stated to be Donkey Kong's father. So I think it just makes the most sense, all things considered, that he is his biological grandfather who raised him as a son. He is in fact Donkey Kong Jr. There is a missing generation that, and maybe they are the deadbeat. Maybe they went missing, but it doesn't really matter because they've never been an actual character. Fuck them. They might make a great plot point later on, like Donkey Kong wants to meet his true father or mother and seeks them out, and turns out they're just awful. They're just maybe they're Kremlin sympathizers. Maybe they're like I don't know, like they've like they're Tiki Tac tribe revivalists. There's just something evil about them. And Donkey Kong's like, "I'm sorry, Cranky, you're my real dad," and they hug it out, and then this emotional ending. It should be the plot for the next Donkey Kong game, actually. Nintendo, you can use that for free. I won't sue. I would like to voice a character in the game. We'll hash that out later. I'll do it for free. But I like the idea that the modern Donkey Kong is Donkey Kong Jr. And it makes sense because Donkey Kong Country established that he's a pre-established video game hero. And if that was his first game, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay. So anyway, Donkey Kong Jr. has a brother in Donkey Kong Jr. Math. So if the modern Donkey Kong is Donkey Kong Jr., what happened to his pink brother? Wow.
I have a feeling you have a theory.
Considering I'm bringing it up in Character Witness Swanky Kong, I think we can all figure out where I've been going with this. Yeah, like, I'm not saying Swanky is Donkey Kong's brother as a canonical fact. It's a fan theory of mine. But
it's just a fanon thing that you really like.
I really like it because I really like this idea that Donkey Kong has a either older or younger brother. Either one would kind of work. But somebody who's even more of a disappointment to Cranky than Donkey himself is. Like, somebody who just totally eschewed the family business of being video game heroes and was like, nah, that lifestyle isn't for me. I want to be a quiz master. Just somebody who was like more into polyester and gold teeth and flash and showmanship over anything substantial like protecting the island that they call home. And I'm not faulting Swanky for that, if that is in fact Swanky's backstory, because you gotta live your life. You've got to live to your true self. Whatever makes you happy, so long as you aren't bringing active pain to others. If you are living a life that brings you joy, you are not doing anything wrong. Right? Like,
right.
If you are being racist or sexist or homophobic or transphobic, then you're not living your best life because you're bringing harm to others. But if you just like hosting game shows, I don't see the problem with that.
Yeah, I don't either. Like, especially when he gives out such wonderful prizes. He brings joy to other people's lives.
He does. He really does. He gives balloons, he gives bananas, gives coins.
What
sometimes.
more could you want?
I really can't tell you because that's all I want out of life right there. So, yeah, like, it's funny because I didn't even know about Donkey Kong Jr. Math in 1995. In December 1995, I had no idea there was anything beyond Donkey Kong Jr., and I don't even know if I knew about Donkey Kong 3 back then, if I'm honest. Like, Donkey Kong 3 was kind of esoteric back then. So I didn't have any of this, like, pink Donkey Kong Jr. nonsense to go off. I did believe the modern Donkey Kong, who had been around for a year at that point, what was literally the modern Donkey Kong at that point. I did believe he was Donkey Kong Jr. So I remember getting on the phone with my friend Elliot that night. We were looking at our respective Nintendo Powers, and we had to compare notes about Donkey Kong Country 2, because I didn't have a DK Vine back then. DK Vine was 4 years away, Dustin. This was
goodness.
the Wildlands. This was we were just we had to get our Donkey Kong lore out in person. we had or the phone, like we had to compare notes and be like, you know, I'm sure someday I will be able to share this with the wider world, but now it's just two kids talking on their phones Friday night. Those 90s phones that were like clear plastic, you could see through them. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Google clear 90s phone right now, Dustin. I'll wait for you. I want you to know what I was dialing on.
Clear plastic phone.
90s phone.
90s.
Google will know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know those.
Yeah,
I've seen those around.
You know, they were corded phones, but yeah, it's like the kind of phone DJ Tanner used in Full House.
Yeah, now I remember it. It's all coming back to me.
So, yeah, it was Friday night, the Friday before Donkey Kong Country 2 came out, and I was like, Elliot, I've got a theory about Swanky Kong. I didn't probably say it like that. I was like, so here's what I think about Swanky Kong. All right? I think he might be Donkey Kong's brother.
And how did he react?
He was like, I don't know, maybe.
He's like, okay.
He was into it, but I don't think he was into it as much as I was into it. He was into it like 70%, where I was into it 102%, you know? Like,
right, he wasn't thinking about how Swanky relates to everything.
I like, he really liked Donkey Kong, the character, so I think he was still trying to process that Donkey Kong wouldn't be playable in this game. Where I related to Diddy Kong, so I was like, yeah, get that fucker out of here. No, I'm joking. I like Donkey Kong too.
Yeah, he's okay.
Yeah,
I guess Donkey Kong's cool.
So yeah, I like this idea that, like, yeah, while Donkey Kong is a disappointment to Cranky, Swanky is just on a whole other level. The fact, like, Cranky can't even be disappointed with him because he stopped even thinking about it for his own sanity. I think there's a real, like, Prince William, Prince Harry dynamic here, if you think Donkey and Swanky are siblings, right?
Explain this to me.
Well, one is the natural heir to the throne, right? One is probably going to be king one day, or the village chieftain, or the jungle hero, as I believe the games have defined them. The other is the spare. So, what does the spare do? The spare also train all of his life to be an adventuring video game hero, a platform star? Or does the spare just say, fuck this, I'm going to go to Crocodile Isle and become a game show host?
He's free to follow his passion.
So Swanky, in that aforementioned Nintendo Power, and then I'll stop talking about this issue of Nintendo Power, there were these Donkey Kong Country 2 trading cards in the back. And Swanky Kong got one. Swanky Kong got his, so they're all like posed, with like background. Swanky's on the Gangplank Galleon, and he's got Squawks with him for some reason. But, Swanky has the character bio on the back.
Yeah, I really like the font they use for his name.
I mean, they're all of this font. Like, every character card had this font. But yes, it's a really...
Something about seeing Swanky in particular. Like, them going out of their way to make a name plate for him.
Yeah, it's this, sort of like purplish fonts with gold highlights with like a emboss over it. Looks really classy. Really classy.
Yeah.
So, would you like to read Nintendo Power's alleged biographical information for Swanky Kong?
I would love nothing more, Hyle.
All right.
Swanky. Height. 5'6". Oh, he's as tall as I am.
Yeah, he's a short Kong king. He's
thank you for saying that after I compared him to myself.
I said king. I'm
true.
saying you're royalty, Dustin. Short king is now a thing.
That's what I like to hear.
Short King Spring.
That's my favorite Donkey Kong Country stage. Weight, 380 pounds. Turn-ons, polyester, disco, plaid jackets, and his gold 77 Firebird.
So, this is like, this immediately, like, I think this little turn-on bit, and I love that Nintendo Power listed the turn-ons for your favorite Donkey Kong Country 2 characters. Like, what gets them horny, baby? It's polyester, disco. That was very formative in my mind, because you have to keep in mind the mid-90s were only 20 years after the height of disco. So disco was still viewed, I think disco was having this nostalgic comeback in the mid-90s among certain sectors. So, like, just associating Swanky with disco. Keep in mind, there's nothing in the games that says Swanky Kong likes disco music. However, because I read this before I was introduced to Swanky in the game, and because I actually viewed Nintendo Power as this authoritative source, because it was Nintendo Power, why would they steer me wrong? I made the association, yes, Swanky loves disco music. And it's still something I think could be true. You know, why wouldn't he like disco? But, well, what actually speaks to me more nowadays is the gold 77 Firebird. Because I can just picture Swanky Kong, like, washing it, like, wiping it down in his driveway some Saturday afternoon, like, completely shirtless. Like, yeah, check out this beauty. Yeah. Want to listen to her purr?
This thing's worth more than your life.
What are Swanky's turnoffs? What makes him retreat? What makes him flaccid?
His turnoffs are sushi.
What?
Heavy metal. Oh, heavy metal or grunge music.
He doesn't like grunge music, which, granted, this was 1995, so this was still, like, the height of grunge.
Right, and he is so over it.
Swanky's a bit of a retro kitsch sort of thing. You know, he likes he likes campy things a little bit more, and so, like, grunge or things that are aggressive, he doesn't really like. He likes things that are sexual, that will make you sweat, but he doesn't like things that will remind you of your pain.
Like sushi.
Well, yeah, the sushi thing is weird. Like, what does sushi have to do with anything? I don't really associate somebody who is of, like, the John Travolta Saturday Night Fever sort of mold as somebody who's like, sushi, no thanks.
Right, like, I read his gold 77 Firebird, and I'm like, yes, you just pulled that out of the blue, but I can totally buy that. It seems like a car Swanky would have.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't look at him and think, you know what? That looks like a guy who does not like sushi. No, sir.
Right. I have to question the wisdom of Nintendo Power, because I view Swanky, based off of everything I learned from his turn-ons, as, at the very least, being of a certain cosmopolitan mindset, right? Like,
right.
He at the very least maybe has no opinion on sushi, but it doesn't tell me what he likes to eat otherwise. It just tells me he doesn't like sushi.
I'm very glad Nintendo Power posted these. I have a date with Swanky later, and this is gonna work out perfectly.
Yeah, don't take him to a sushi restaurant. No Pearl Jam tickets, please.
Maybe I can sell these on eBay.
Yeah. What's his favorite quote according to Nintendo Power? Which, by the way, favorite quote, like, who has, let me tell you my favorite quote, which is, I guess, my own quote. Like, let me tell you the favorite thing I say.
Right, like, this isn't even something he says in the game.
No,
this isn't
it's not.
like he's going around, this isn't like a catchphrase or something, but it says his favorite quote is, "I'll take jungle trivia for 1,000.
1,000 what? Banana coins? It says dollars here. Like,
Yeah, they don't have dollars.
No, they don't. They have banana coins or bear coins. They don't have dollars.
Yeah, he probably just likes the sound of it.
Yeah, it's stupid. And this is where I start getting off board with Nintendo Power.
This is where I didn't draw the line at his turn-ons and turn-offs. Favorite quote is where I'm drawing the line.
So this was 1995, and apparently favorite video is something that people had. Like, favorite VHS tape is what they mean. But nobody called them VHS tapes after, Betamax collapsed, but before DVDs, it was just videos. What's your favorite video, little boy? What's your favorite video, little girl? Oh, it's The Little Mermaid? Here's The Little Mermaid on video. Here's a video. This is so dated. Jesus.
Right. Well, if someone were to obnoxiously get up in Swanky's face and ask, "What's your favorite video?" he would say, "Well, my favorite video is 100 Ways to Meet Girls."
Right. So that... Oh, okay. So I feel like that's not a real video, but that is probably closely hewing to a video that surely existed at one point, like the height of VHS, which was probably the early 90s into the mid 90s. DVDs came in the late 90s, but it took a couple years for them to sort of mainstream to become the standard format. But at the height of VHS, there was definitely this cash grab mentality where, like, the future of marketing is on VHS, is on video. We need videos that we can sell to people, get rich quick schemes. Call 1-800 blah 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 and order our video. And like self-esteem videos, or like this is like in the realm of those sleazy like pickup artist books that were popular in the aughts.
Right.
Which are kind of like viewed rightfully as sort of skeevy now. Like I'm a sex positive guy. Like, have at it, you fornicators. But there's something creepy about this, like 100 ways to meet girls. Now, granted, it doesn't say 100 ways to seduce girls. 100 ways to get girls in your bed, guaranteed. It's just to meet them, for
right.
Whatever reason, and then whatever happens.
It's more friendly.
Whatever happens. If sparks fly, great. But there's more implied consent in this than tricking women into under the sheets chicanery. But I think that this also made an impression on me, this favorite video for Swanky, according to Nintendo Power, because it really did make me think he's, at the very least, a wannabe Lothario. Somebody who fancies himself, at the very least, a ladies' man. And
right. I like the idea that he would... It kind of adds a layer of... I guess patheticness might be the right word.
Right.
In that, like, he puts himself out there. He's this big, flashy game show host, but he still has trouble meeting the girls.
So, combining all of that we've already read, it really does just conjure images. Even if you're a kid, a sheltered child, you still pretty much know this archetype of this guy drenched in cologne, probably somebody who is just obnoxious, and because you probably have watched enough sitcoms of that era to know what this guy is about, even if
Right.
the Nintendo Power is kind of skirting around some of the more scintillating details here. Now, we know he likes disco. We know he hates grunge and heavy metal. What is his favorite song, though, according to Nintendo Power?
Well, Swanky's favorite song, according to Nintendo Power, is My Way.
My Way by Frank Sinatra. Which, what?
Yeah.
Like,
that doesn't
Sinatra?
strike me as something that would be his favorite song. I could see him listening to it, though.
Like, maybe Mafia Kong or something. Like, but Swanky would like the Bee Gees. Swanky would like Earth, Wind, and Fire. Swanky, like, Frank Sinatra? No, really. Even out of the Rat Pack, I would say Sammy Davis Jr. would hew more closely to Swanky Kong.
Maybe it's not so much the style, maybe it's more the message.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a message Swanky can
I
live
did
by.
it my way. My dad wanted me to be a video game hero, and I said, later, Pops. And I went to Crocodile Isle to host quiz shows.
That's a life for me.
Yeah. And then tips and secrets aren't as fun because these are actually relevant to the game itself. So I'll read this. I'll spare you the pain of this, Dustin.
Oh, thank you so much. I would have left if you made me.
I know. I see you put it on your coat and hat, and I was like, oh, wait, hold on.
I had my suitcase packed.
Yeah, which is weird because, why did you bring a suitcase? Swanky's free and 1 banana coin games are pretty easy, and you'll get at least 1 extra life if you win. You can win each game only once.
Wow, that riveting stuff.
It's absolutely just the best paragraph ever constructed. And when I say paragraph, I mean it's like 2 sentences. But, alright, so Swanky Kong in Donkey Kong Country 2, of course, hosts Swanky's Bonus Bonanza, which isn't just the name of his Kong helper stop. It is the name of his game show that it airs on... I assume it's broadcast across the Rare Archipelago, but it's filmed across various studios on Crocodile Isle. So, maybe it's like a KTV or something that's broadcast out of Crocodile Isle. I'm sure they could watch it on the Isle of Hags. I'm sure Conker can pick it up in Willow Woods.
Right.
Probably has far reach, but it's native to Crocodile Isle. And it's worth pointing out, though, like, Swanky does seem to live on Crocodile Isle, which is why we never saw Swanky in Donkey Kong Country. However, in the Game Boy Advance remake of Donkey Kong Country 2, after Donkey Kong gets captured, various Kongs come together on the Congo beach to study the crime scene. And they're like, well, what do we do? And among those Kongs are Wrinkly and Swanky, who at this point, Wrinkly is off on Crocodile Isle teaching the Kremlin children, kind of like an outreach program, right? And Swanky, of course, is hosting the Bonus Bonanza. Now, I don't think it takes much effort for them to come over from Crocodile Isle to Donkey Kong Island, especially if, hey, Donkey Kong is missing. He's apparently been kidnapped. So they all meet on the Congo beach. But Swanky does come over to Donkey Kong Island. And in fact, interestingly enough, outside of that spirit battle in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, this is the one time we ever see Swanky set foot on Donkey Kong Island.
Oh my goodness, it's history in the making.
Yeah, it's like Neil Armstrong on the moon. But yeah, they all meet and they're like, well, what do we do? What do we do? And then Diddy's like, I'll rescue him. Fine, I'll do it. And Dixie's like, oh no, you don't, not alone. Anyway, so Swanky's there, so he did come over, and I guess that's where he got the idea. Hey, while you're over here, I could have you, Diddy, and you, Dixie, as contestants on my bonus bonanza. And then that way, if you win prizes, you win life balloons, then hey, that's helping you out, and I'm helping out Donkey Kong.
Right, you scratch my back, I scratch yours.
Think of the ratings. So yeah, Swanky's bonus bonanza, there is a studio in every region of Crocodile Isle, save for the Flying Croc, which isn't really a region so much as a mess of brambles that K-Rool flew through, and the Lost World. There's no studio in the Lost World. There's a studio in the Gangplank Galleon world, and it's not clear on the Super Nintendo version, but if you play the Game Boy Advance version, you can see that the studio isn't actually on the Gangplank Galleon. So it's the maps. It gives you a different perspective of the map screen in the Game Boy Advance version, and
right.
And the Game Boy Advance version does show the shape of the studio as well. It looks like a barrel. It looks like a big old barrel. Of course. Yeah, of course. Like a lot of buildings on Donkey Kong Island and Crocodile Isle happen to look like barrels. But yeah, the bonus bonanza studio. So in Donkey Kong Country 2 for the Super Nintendo, of course, we only see one room of it, like the show floor where you got the big flashing bonus sign up on the bamboo. There's like bamboo stalks that this like twinkling bonus sign is built across, and then you have the 3 prize barrels for game 1, game 2, and game 3. And if you win game 1, you get a balloon out of that. You win game 2, you get a balloon out of that. You win game 3, you get a balloon out of that. So it's exciting, it's riveting. But I also really like how you can see a giant banana from Donkey Kong's Horde is in the studio.
Yeah, you think DK just let him have it, help him out, help a brother out?
Maybe he just took it when he was on Donkey Kong Island.
He's like, he's not going to need all these bananas.
These will go bad by the time he gets rescued. Maybe I'll just take one for each studio, one giant banana for each studio. It's set
I'm
dressing.
doing him a favor.
Yeah, and then maybe I can eat it at the end of shooting.
I love that. That's his little reward for himself.
Yeah, his little treat. Little Swanky gets a treat. We've also got the life balloons for Donkey Kong that don't appear anywhere in Donkey Kong Country except for this little cameo appearance here. The red, green, and blue Donkey Kong balloons, which is a nice little touch that he has those as well. Because he gives Diddy the Diddy balloons. But we do know that...
but these ones will work well as set dressing.
Well, yeah, and we do know that life balloons can exist like independent of the main adventure in Kong. Because in Donkey Kong Land 3, Dixie actually gets Diddy life balloons. There are no Dixie life balloons in Donkey Kong Land 3. There are Diddy life balloons, which I always took to mean that Diddy and Donkey Kong were close by, also looking for the Lost World, and Diddy was just overriding Dixie's own life balloon, so they were taking the shape of his head, and she was like, oh man, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so, Swanky... we're not gonna read all the trivia questions here because that would be stupid podcasting. That would be boring. But there are.
See, I'm glad. I was a little worried going into a minute before we started. I was like, oh shit, am I gonna have to know all of these questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna quiz you, Dustin. I'm gonna quiz you on every Swanky.
Boy, there's
question.
homework involved.
No. There are a couple worth mentioning because I love that the very first question Swanky asks you in Donkey Kong Country 2 is, what is my name?
That's a tough one.
I mean, maybe you're not paying it. Maybe Diddy and Dixie don't really know who this guy is. Maybe they're not really paying attention, even though they're on Swanky's bonus bonanza. But anyway, yeah, what is my name? And the choices are Swanky, Wonky, or Stinky.
Stinky Kong, my favorite.
I like that Swanky put that in there. He's like, well, clearly they're not going to pick Stinky because I smell so sweet.
Stinky is the exact opposite of the kind of Kong I am.
Yeah, and Wonky just implies, like, something's off with him.
Oh, man, I want to see a Wonky Kong.
I always said Wonky... I didn't always say this. I didn't say this when I was 2, but I maintain that Wonky Kong, if they ever, like, fully jumped the shark and had Wario iterations of Donkey Kong and friends, Wonky Kong would be the perfect Wario analog for Donkey Kong.
I love that. He's not even like an evil Donkey Kong. He's more just kind of like confused.
Confused?
Not sure what's going on.
Yeah, drooling a little bit. Pissing everywhere. I don't know.
Oh, man. Now you made me upset he doesn't exist and I can't play as him in Mario Kart right now.
I can imagine him like... He sucks on his big toe, and he's got like one really long toenail on the other foot. Just
oh my goodness,
really long, yellowed, flaking toenail.
Yeah, but we love him all the same.
Yeah, Wonky Kong, WK is here. There's also a very lore important question that Swanky asked. And that is, what is the name of the trendy surfing Kong who operates his barrel flights? Would you like to read the 3 choices Swanky gives you?
I would love to. So, choice A, Cranky. Choice B is Chunky.
What?
And what? The Chunky? And then choice C is Funky.
Yeah. And it's clearly Funky. And Cranky was, at the time, the only other Kong in there that, you might know of. Yet, the first time Chunky Kong is mentioned in Donkey Kong lore is as a wrong answer in Swanky's Bonus Bonanza, which, of course, Chunky Kong then became a real Kong in 1999 in Donkey Kong 64. And so the question...
So there's hope for Wonky yet.
There's hope for Wonky. There's hope for Stinky Kong. Cross your fingers for Stinky Kong. Write those letters to Nintendo that we want to see Stinky Kong.
Hey, if we can get K. Rool and Smash, we can make this happen.
I think the thing to do would be to make your letters really stinky. Really
get the point across.
Let's bring the stink to Nintendo. Stink it up.
Bring that stink. Hashtag stink it up.
I really love this little bit. And I don't know how intentional this was. I don't know if anybody on the DK64 team went back through the notes, through the archives and said, we mentioned a Chunky Kong in Donkey Kong Country 2. What if we applied that character to this character who's kind of chunky? I think it's just Chunky is sort of an obvious name when you're going for the Blanky naming convention. Right. And, we already had Tiny. So what's the reverse of Tiny? Fatty Kong? No, that's mean. That's derogatory. It's dispiriting. We don't want Fatty Kong. What about Chunky Kong? Because Chunky isn't really an insult. It's. I mean, it could be, but it's more of just a descriptor. Something is chunky. That can be good, nice and chunky.
It's fun to say.
So I think it was probably a coincidence, but the fact this is the beauty of Donkey Kong lore, Dustin, is that so much of it is accidental, but so much of it lines up like this, where, Chunky Kong is first mentioned in Donkey Kong Country 2, and then we later met him 4 years later in Donkey Kong 64.
There's a payoff.
It doesn't matter if it was planned or not. It happened. That's pretty cool. And that also implies that Swanky knows of Chunky Kong. And I want to know what that story is. I want to know how Chunky came to know Swanky at this point in the timeline. Because this is before Kiddy Kong goes on an adventure, with the Kongs. This is before Chunky goes on his first adventure with the Kongs. How does Chunky know Swanky? Was Chunky a contestant on the bonus Bonanza at some point prior to this?
Maybe he's Swanky's biggest fan. He never misses a show.
He wrote letters to Swanky saying, "Dear Mr. Swanky," because he was a little kid at this point. He was like,
right, of course.
Dear Mr. Swanky, I never miss your show. I love it so much when the balloon pops out of the barrel. Hee hee hee. I would love nothing more than to be a wrong answer on your show. Love you forever, Chunky. XOXO.
And he made that child's wish come true.
He did.
What a guy.
He did. You know what? I know we said that Swanky Kong seemed like kind of a creep. I think this completely changes the equation. I think like Swanky Kong is basically like one of those Make-A-Wish celebrities. He's like Shaquille O'Neal
That's
visiting
exactly
the sick
what I was
child
thinking.
in the hospital, like John Cena.
Right. He grants these kids wishes by visit. You get a visit from Swanky Kong.
But, you know, unlike John Cena, I can see you, Swanky. I see your heart. I see how large your heart is. You can't hide it behind that polyester.
It turns out he's a very sensitive gorilla.
You know, he likes bringing entertainment and joy to people. And while there might be a little bit of narcissism in that, because, ooh, look at me, I'm the center of attention. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. I think he does like bringing joy to people. I do think that is an actual aspect of Swanky, especially where his character goes after this. But before we get there, I do want to quibble over something. I want to hash it out with you, Dustin, because this is the grand question when it comes to Swanky, or rather, when it comes to Swanky's design.
I'd love to hash it out.
In Donkey Kong Country 2. So his jacket, his plaid, like 70s, like Don Knotts and Three's Company jacket that he wears is universal between his in-game model and his promotional character render. The rings on his finger, they carry over. The golden teeth he's got, they carry over. Everything is there on the render as is on the game model, except for one little detail that back in the day, back on our blurry-ass non-HD TVs, our tube TVs. TVs were made with tubes back then. It was hard to actually discern if this was actually what we were seeing or not. Nowadays, we have crystal clear, 1080p or higher resolution, crisp images of Donkey Kong Country 2, and we can clearly see it's there. There is some sort of ratty, greasy toupee on Swanky Kong's head. And when I say it's a toupee, I come to that conclusion because his render does not have this. This is only on his in-game model. It's like matted black hair that looks like it's thinning, or it doesn't look full. It looks... It looks like some sort of porcupine died on his head.
Yeah, I never even really thought about it until you brought it up. I just assumed it was just supposed to be how his render looked, and that was the best they could pull off on the actual system. But, boy, yeah, it doesn't even look like his hair in the render, does it?
Well, no, like, on the render, he's got, like, a poofed up fur.
You know what his render always reminded me of is 90s Howie Mandel.
90s Howie Mandel. Now, 90s Howie Mandel, was 90s Howie Mandel wearing a toupee? Because Howie Mandel all of a sudden just became a bald man overnight.
Right. I don't recall him wearing a toupee, but
I'm saying, I don't remember Howie Mandel balding. All of a sudden, Howie Mandel just was bald. I was like, how did that happen, Howie Mandel?
Why do you lose your classic Swanky Kong hair?
Yeah, so he's got like a blow-dried fur look on the render, which is how I mostly associate him. But yeah, in the game, and especially in the Game Boy Advance version, where the contrast was just turned up, everything was brighter on the Game Boy Advance version, you can really see it there. And you're like, oh my God, it's hideous.
Oh, get that out of here.
So I do think it's supposed to be a toupee, and even though the Super Mario Brothers movie isn't canon per se, I think we can draw some conclusions from Nintendo's intent and how they may view Swanky in the present. And so looking at that poster, looking at that art asset of Swanky Kong, that, very small image, but we can at the very least see he's not wearing a toupee there. They've actually kind of split the difference. They've kept him styling just the fur on his head, as most male Kongs just have the fur atop their head. They don't have any actual weird human hair. Jungle Beat Kongs kind of get away from this a little bit, but so Swanky, he's swooped up his fur as like a pompadour. So it's like even beyond the blow dried render look, but it's like he doesn't need the toupee because he's got a nice thick head of fur, and he can just do whatever he wants with that, and he doesn't need to be wearing a toupee. I could see why video game Swanky would want the toupee though, because he's a game show host and he's got to fit the image, and he just wants jet black hair, and he doesn't have that, so he wears a toupee. He wears a toupee like maybe Howie Mandel did. We don't know. We don't know.
He has to. I feel like he has to live his truth. I think the blow dried fur in the render looks great.
Yeah, I could see him meeting at least 98 girls like that, 99 girls maybe. He's not going to meet anywhere close to 100 girls with his toupee.
That's true. I feel like he just needs to learn to be himself.
Exactly. Maybe he'll listen to this and he'll accept that. I think he's put away the toupee. I think the toupee probably sank with Crocodile Isle.
That was his arc in the whole game. At the end of you don't see it, but I just imagine off screen when Crocodile Isle goes down into the waters, he takes one look at his horrible toupee and says, "I don't need you anymore," and tosses it in.
Yeah, what they should have done is, K. Rool sails away and does this little laughter, and eventually the sound effects and the violent shaking reset if you keep it on that beautiful ending scene of DKC2. If you keep it on long enough, like the sound effects reset and you're like, ah. But what they should have done somehow is maybe like 40 minutes in, maybe 70 minutes in, maybe like 7 hours in, all of a sudden you just see that toupee floating across the screen.
That's the payoff. You get Swanky's arc finally comes full circle when you wait that extra 7 hours.
So I mentioned that the toupee was more visible in the Game Boy Advance version, and the contrast was just turned way up. So Swanky's Bonus Bonanza, the interior got a bit of a redesign in the Game Boy Advance version. Now the layout of the actual prize room that we see in the Super Nintendo version, it's basically the same, but they did change the color scheme of quite a bit. Now it's much more visibly a barrel here, but you don't see any of the bamboo, and the prize barrels, they no longer say 1, 2, and 3. They now have banana coins on there. 1 banana coin, 2 banana coins, 3 banana coins. And they're color-coded red, green, or blue for, the balloons you get from them. And there are these big old stars on the floor and on the walls. And we actually see the cameras. Shooting the different angles of the Bonus Bonanza. Now, I can squint, Dustin, and I can pretend like this is the same room and that this is just what the room looks like with a whole lot of lighting, and maybe there's different LEDs that illuminate the prize barrels that make them look different, and maybe the giant banana and the other life balloons just weren't on set at this point in time.
Right.
DK Vine's stance is that the Super Nintendo versions will always outclass the Game Boy Advance remakes when it comes to canon, but the Game Boy Advance versions are canonical. We can discern from them canon. So both versions are true. We just have to figure out how they align with each other. So we'll just squint. You just squint and make it work. However, there is another side to the studio that we never saw on the Super Nintendo. And this is this big screen where the questions come up, presumably for the audience's sake, maybe the studio audience's sake, or the at-home audience, they can see this. But this is something completely different. And who is this other Kong who is pointing at the questions?
Why, that looks like Candy Kong herself.
Right, so Donkey Kong Country 2 for the Game Boy Advance did something interesting. It accounted for every missing character at that point. So, Donkey Kong Country 2 famously sidelined Candy Kong. Didn't have her in the game. Didn't even bring her up in the story. It also had no reference to Espresso, the ostrich, and Winky was only featured in a small background cameo in the Monkey Museum that, some argue is actually Winky, some argue is just a Winky statue. The Game Boy Advance version not only brought in Espresso for this whole new minigame, Espresso Racing, where you race Kremlin-owned ostriches in the underground ostrich races of Crocodile Isle. I'm not making this up. This is actually a thing in the game. And Winky is actually now animated in the background of Cranky's place, so you can actually see him jumping around. No more argument there. But they also brought in Candy Kong to act as the Vanna White-like figure in Swanky's Bonus Bonanza, which I can understand why they did this, because they have the opportunity. Hey, fans will love that we finally explain where all these characters were in Donkey Kong Country 2. My problem is this what Candy Kong would be doing with her boyfriend abducted, being tortured at the hands of K. Rool? Would she really say, yeah, I'll come along to Crocodile Isle if I can be on TV?
I guess it's better than not doing anything. I mean, I like that Candy is there. I like that it gives her another game appearance at least.
I don't really have an issue with it, but it is funny to me. Like, from 1995 to 2004, it was just my idea that Candy was just emotionally devastated by this, and she would have been no help.
Right, she wasn't there because she was so distraught over Donkey Kong's well-being.
Like, there had to be some reason why Wrinkly took over saving duties, and maybe that writes off Candy too much. Oh, she's too emotional. She couldn't be there. Like, maybe that doesn't give her enough credit. But to say, oh no, she was there as Swanky's lovely assistant. Like what? Okay. Like, maybe this was maybe in my brain, right? This was offered by Swanky on the beach. Like, we didn't see Candy on the beach. She was just off screen, and Swanky was like. Candy was like, I'll come along, but I don't know what use I'll be. I just can't focus on anything right now. And Swanky was like, you can hang out in my studio. You can be my assistant. She is sick for the week, like Vanna Kong or whatever. Maybe she had the flu or whatever. It was cold and flu season after all.
Right,
December '95. So. So Candy helped out in the final days of the Bonus Bonanza, being the assistant, pointing at the questions, and she was there getting updates on Donkey Kong's situation from Diddy and Dixie. So it helped her to tag along, even if she couldn't participate.
Right, I like that. She gets to be filled in on what the situation is, while also helping them out in a way. She's pointing at the questions.
But, of course, given I have this lecherous image of Swanky in my mind. I was like, was he just trying to like move in on Donkey's girl while Donkey was literally tied up? I don't think he was. I don't think anything happened there. And maybe that's just because I ship Candy and Funky, and if Candy was going to go for anyone else, it would be Funky Kong. But
right, Swanky's third on that list.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird, you know, and whatever. He wasn't gonna like make any moves on her in that greasy toupee though, so
right.
Yeah. So yeah, Swanky's bonus bonanza. So Swanky, the big shut game show host, it's all well and good, but then of course, as we already alluded to, Crocodile Isle sort of blew up at the end of Donkey Kong Country 2, and it sank to the bottom of the ocean.
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of. I mean, in that it completely happened. And so that means that all of Swanky's studios, all of these TV studios that he filmed out of, I would imagine he filmed out of all these different TV studios because he would bounce around like, Swanky's Bonus Bonanza will be in Cram Key next week. Get your tickets. So, you know, he would just bounce back and forth between the different KTV studios or whatever. And so then Crocodile Isle sank. That channel was no more. And Swanky was suddenly off the air. And maybe they had, you know, the full rights to Swanky's Bonus Bonanza. And now it was just like up in the air. He was off TV. And so what happened with Swanky post Donkey Kong Country 2? But pre-Donkey Kong Country 3. What was this lost year for Swanky Kong actually like? Because he wasn't in Donkey Kong Land 2. He didn't make an appearance in Donkey Kong Land 2. He didn't show up. Like, Wrinkly was in Donkey Kong Land 2. Funky was in Donkey Kong Land 2. Clubba was in Donkey Kong Land 2. Cranky and Swanky set that one out.
Oh, that's crazy that they would boot Cranky. Swanky, I get.
Well, Cranky was never in any Donkey Kong Land game.
Right.
It's like, Cranky was, of course, an integral part of the story for the original Donkey Kong Land. He was the instigator.
But physically, he's not there.
Physically, he never showed up. And a picture of Cranky is hanging in Wrinkly's refuge in Donkey Kong Land 3. But that's it, as far as Cranky in the Donkey Kong Land games go. But, yeah, Cranky and Swanky sat that one out. And I think for Swanky, it's like, what's Swanky gonna do? All of his studios are waterlogged or obliterated, and he's not going to go back on the air. Now that Crocodile Isle is magically back for like a week, you know, he's done. His show's canceled. So I like to imagine in my head, and this was actually my headcanon in early 1996 through November, until November of that year. My headcanon was that Swanky Kong was crashing with Cranky and Wrinkly in Cranky's cabin. Like, he was in the guest bedroom.
I love that. There's just no reason for you to see him, but he's there. Don't worry.
He had nowhere to go. He was suddenly homeless. He didn't have a job. So, you know, even if you don't think that Swanky is Cranky and Wrinkly's grandson, or, you know, raised as the second son or whatever, then yeah, like, we would have to be staying with somebody, right? Why not stay with Cranky and Wrinkly? That would explain the later relationship he strikes up with Cranky. So, you know, maybe they rebonded during this time. Maybe they finally had a heart-to-heart, and they're like, look, Dad, I know you're disappointed in me. I know you don't like what I made of my life, but it's my life, damn it. I can never be you. I just have to be the best me that I can be. And Cranky was like, damn it, come here. And they hugged.
That's beautiful. I wish we got to see it, but you painted such a vivid picture of it.
I still hold out hope for midquels. I want there to be midquels where we can see these high emotional arcs that I have only imagined come to life. Now, it's never going to be as good as my imagination, so maybe I should not make these wishes. I only have 3. I shouldn't waste them on silly things like this. But Yeah, it'd be nice to see. Anyway, so was Swanky trying to get a new TV show during this time? Actually, we do have some lore in this department. And this lore came not from Nintendo Power this time. It came from a more authoritative source when it comes to the DKU. It came from Lee Loveday on the vintage Rare website, Rareware. This is the character biography for Swanky Kong on the Donkey Kong Country Trilogy page that you could once find on Rare's website. So, Swanky Kong appears in DKC 2, 3. The second
I'm with them so far.
Yeah. So far, it's completely accurate. The second great entrepreneur of the Kong family, alongside Funky, Swanky has aimed for a career in showbiz since being bitten by the game show bug further back than he can remember. This is already aligning with some of my own headcanon. His original Bonus Bonanza trivia quiz proved popular, but led to allegations of favoritism regarding Dixie and Diddy, prompting Swanky to branch out and tour the surrounding lands with a new sideshow featuring a triumphant Cranky as defending champion. Despite his love of competition, Swanky is a generous soul and, true to tradition, never lets anyone walk away empty-handed.
That makes Swanky such a much more likable character. Even if you lose his games, guess what? You're getting something.
Yeah, that was a lot more generous of a biography than he wants to fuck.
Yeah, how to talk to girls 101.
Yeah, Swanky turns up his nose at traditional Japanese cuisine, hates Kurt Cobain and Eddie Vedder, and he likes to get his dipstick greased. And by that I mean his Firebird 77.
That's true, but here, Rare really gave him... They make him out to be a saint.
Well, not a saint so much, but they do give him redeeming qualities. And that
Right.
was the heart of Rare, where Rare could be super, like, cynical and, just write something off as a joke, but underneath it all, there would be a true soul to it. And did you catch this little bit, though, Dustin, about what happened to the Bonus Bonanza other than it, sinking in the ocean?
Oh, I caught this bit all right.
Allegations of favoritism regarding Dixie and Diddy, which is what prompted him to branch out into Swanky's sideshow, because if you read between the lines, he couldn't get another TV show. No networks would hire him because there is a scandal involving the final days of the Bonus Bonanza. Yes, it was Swanky's idea to have Diddy and Dixie on the show to help them out. And Diddy and Dixie answered the questions themselves. Like, Swanky never, cheated for them.
Right, he never, whispered the answers to them.
But the appearance was there of impropriety. The quiz show scandal of the 50s. I don't know if you're familiar with this. This is an actual thing.
I'm not at all.
Yeah, if you look it up, where producers gave certain contestants the answers, contestants who were popular with viewers. And it was this huge scandal in the early days of television, and the same fate befell Swanky. And he was blacklisted from television across the Rare archipelago. Maybe if he went to the Mushroom Kingdom, once that warp pipe access, opened up in 1999 or whenever, maybe then he could have, gotten on Mushroom Kingdom TV. But Swanky chose a different route. Swanky was like, I'm never getting back on TV. This is before the internet was in every household. This is before YouTube, a decade before YouTube. Swanky couldn't just go into business for himself, become a Twitch streamer or something. Swanky was out of options. And I'm sure, he wanted to get off of the spare bedroom of Cranky and Wrinkly. So Swanky decided to take his love of showmanship, take that generous soul that Lee Loveday described, and take it on the road with a traveling sideshow.
I think this is what makes me really like your theory of him being Cranky's son. I like the idea of this sideshow being a family business, saying, hey, Dad, want to be part of this? We can travel around. You can show everyone how good you are at hitting bullseyes.
Yeah, so I had this theory, of course, about Swanky being Donkey Kong's brother 11 months before I knew anything about Swanky's Sideshow. But Swanky's Sideshow, in my mind, really cemented this relationship between Swanky and Cranky.
Yeah.
Because Cranky has this weird role in DKC3 where he is kind of pushed to the sidelines a little bit. Because Donkey Kong Country 3 has Wrinkly running the saving in Wrinkly's Save Cave. Funky is still, renting out vehicles. But other than that, it's really the Brothers Bear who take over the role of like Kong helpers and the movers,
hints.
The movers and shakers, right? And so because the Brothers Bear would give you so many hints from Bazaar to Blunder, then what does Cranky do? Because Cranky can't just tread that same territory. So they moved Cranky into a different role as being your opponent in Swanky's Sideshow. Swanky's Sideshow. And Swanky's Sideshow is his new game, and Swanky reinvents himself, right? So gone is the plaid jacket of the game show host. Now he's adorned in this resplendent yellow vest, and really shows off his tits.
Yeah, he's personally, I think this is my preferred design for Swanky. The one in DKC2 is good, but just something about this one feels it really works for him in my eyes. Well, maybe it's the shoes. Maybe it's just having like pants and shoes kind of separates him from DK a little more.
He's got like, what are the? He's dressed like Mr. Peanut almost. He's got the cane. He's got the vanity cane. He's still got the rings. He's still got the gold teeth.
Still got the tooth.
But he's got the little like cabaret hat, like cabaret top hat. He's got the shoes that look like what are even these shoes? I don't even know how to describe these shoes. They're very evocative of something. I don't know what.
They're spats.
Okay. I don't know shoes.
I believe.
I don't know shoes, Dustin. I like bare feet. I like wiggling toes. So shoes.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Shoes frighten me, but and it's unusual for a Kong to be wearing shoes. Even Funky, who wore work boots in DKC3, eventually popped those bad boys off post buyout, so he could wiggle the goods for everyone. But Swanky, he's got the tight pants. I mean, this is a tight, well-fitted carnival barker suit he's got on. And I think I like the game show design for the longest time. I think this one has eventually worn me down to be my preferred take on Swanky as well. And I really like that the design in the art assets for the Super Mario Brothers movie took from this. He doesn't have the hat, but he's got the vest. It's clearly his DKC3 clothing, just kind of simplified a bit, just like Funky's mechanic garb was simplified post buyout. I like it. I like that this is potentially Swanky's look should he ever come back.
Yeah, I especially like it since I feel like it's even more rare to have DKC3 get referenced than other things.
Yeah.
Like, some things carry over, like you said, with Funky's design, but other than that, and like K. Rool's jetpack in Smash, it's very little carries over. So I'd be totally cool with if Swanky ever came back and this was his default design. I'd be cool with it.
And he should come back. Let's all be honest.
Yeah.
So Swanky Sideshow, it's a Sideshow tent, and I think the implication is there is no one set location. He's just going from area to area.
It's a traveling show, yeah.
It's a traveling show. And maybe there is some more permanent infrastructure, which we'll get to when we get to the Game Boy Advance version. But yeah, Swanky's Sideshow, as it is, Swanky's tent. So it's basically a target game where you throw baseballs at these Kremlin, these I think they're supposed to be like claptraps holding targets.
I think so. That's always what I thought.
Yeah, which is interesting because claptraps don't even appear in Donkey Kong Country 3, but I like that Swanky modeled them after claptraps, and they're holding these targets, and you've got to throw the baseball at the targets, and there are 3 different modes. There's 3 different variations of Swanky's Sideshow game. There's head-to-head, race to 25, and endurance. So you're competing against Cranky in these games, and head to head, you just have to I don't even remember what head to head entails.
So you're both throwing balls at the targets, but I feel like if I remember right, it's you. So how do I even describe it? It's like it's like if you get a hit on a target, then it takes a point away from the opponent.
So head to head, it isn't like head to head just whoever gets the most points at the end.
Yeah.
Where race to 25, it stops whenever somebody gets to 25. And endurance is basically the first one to screw up loses.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Exactly.
But I always preferred race to 25 because it was this tangible, like, okay, we just have to get to 25. And then usually Cranky will screw up once or twice and you'll have a bit of a cushion there, but endurance was just too stressful for me.
Yeah. I feel like I leaned more towards head to head because, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I feel, was that the only one that had, like, you could see their faces? Like, if you were doing not well, your Kong would look distressed.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So it's basically
that was
like
fun.
Yeah, there'd be the little meter that would go up or down, and it'd be like Banjo-Kazooie's life meter, where they would like start frowning the worse you did, and then just in complete anguish if you lose. That's what it is. Okay, yeah, I never did head to head though. I preferred race to 25, but yeah, anyway. So the actual like ball throwing like interior of Swanky's tent is interesting because the only prizes you get from Swanky in the Super Nintendo version, bear coins, and bananas, and maybe life balloons. I think he would throw at you. But
I think so.
Yeah, you would always walk away with something, even if you lose.
Right.
But he's got much more enticing prizes, in my opinion. Just lining the grass next to the tent. So there is a plush of Squitter. There is a plush of Engard. There is a plush of Squawks. There are a couple teddy bears. And there is this doll, who I forget the name of it, but it was apparently a popular doll in the UK during this time period. And they not so subtly just kind of ripped off the design for it for DKC3.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that doll in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I'm not familiar with that fairy tale, Dustin.
So in the animated Rudolph, well, I don't need to get the point is it looked similar.
You're actually going to describe Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I was going to go into the whole lore of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I don't know. It just seems made up to me.
You could listen to my podcast on Rudolph Vine to figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know. A reindeer with a glowing red nose. I don't know. That's a little far-fetched to me.
A little. It's not as believable as gorillas with sideshow tents.
I mean, it's not even one of the original 8 reindeer, Dustin. Come on.
That's true.
Where did this guy come from? So, Anyway, I do like that there are these plushes. Like, this implies to me that the exploits of Donkey Kong Country 2 were so legendary that they actually, like, made and marketed Animal Buddy plushes. Like, you can get a plush of the famous Squitter. And, because we know, like, in Donkey Konga 2, they named a bridge after Radley. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I've never played Donkey Konga 2.
Well, I know what the Idaho crew should play next then.
Oh, I doubt it.
Yeah, so in Donkey Konga 2, presumably around the docks of Big Ape City, because Donkey Konga 2 seems to follow the same worlds of Donkey Kong Land, but there is a Radley bridge that is engraved with the image of Radley, presumably because it jumps you over the water, but it's an honorific for Radley. And so I like this idea that the animal buddies are just as revered and honored as the Kongs. And they did various things like marketing plushes and naming things after them. And it's just a little cool insight into like the celebrity of the Kongs and their allies and their exploits. Like, we know the DK rap is an in-universe thing, and so
right.
Anyway,
I like that, since it kind of feels like the animal buddies are a little thankless just compared to the Kongs. So it's nice to see them get some appreciation with these. Yeah,
I like to think there's maybe like tell-all books of Donkey Kong, this is what happened. And just a cover of him, like, with his finger to his brow, like, thinking. And it just tells you everything that happened, like, during Donkey Kong Country. And, maybe
the real story.
The real story, yeah. Or maybe, like, the equivalent of Nightline or whatever, like, news magazine shows that air on, like, Fridays at 10 p.m., on the Kong Broadcasting Corporation. They just sit down, tell me what happened when you were kidnapped by the Kremlins.
Right. I love that.
Is it true that Swanky Kong gave the answers to Diddy and Dixie? As you said, there's this great, like, relationship implied between Swanky and Cranky here. And Wrinkly even says, if you see Cranky, please tell him to stop wasting his money at Swanky's games. Like, even Wrinkly's like, he's spending too much time with Swanky. It needs to stop.
Put an end to this.
Yeah, so I like this notion that they rekindled their relationship. Whatever that relationship might be, whatever you personally believe. I think it's fair to say that Swanky and Cranky really hit it off in DKC 3.
Yeah.
Now, the Game Boy...
I like that a lot.
The Game Boy Advance version changed things up in a really odd way. And I think the reason they did this was because they moved Cranky to a different role in that game. They instituted Cranky's Dojo, a completely new minigame and activity for Cranky, utilizing the Cranky and the gi, the karate Cranky that was briefly seen if you got the 105% Immortal Monkey ranking in Donkey Kong Country 3 by putting in the cheat codes. They used that model and just completely came up with something new for Cranky in the Game Boy Advance version, Cranky's Dojo, where he's teaching you his expert moves as a esteemed video game hero. And so they didn't want to have Cranky in Swanky's tent. And maybe the ball throwing mechanic didn't really work well. Although you still have the fight with Bleak in the game, so I don't think that's the case. But anyway, they came up with a replacement for Swanky's Sideshow in the Game Boy Advance version called Swanky's Dash. Swanky's Dash.
Swanky's Dash.
Are you familiar? Have you played the Game Boy Advance version of DKC 3?
Oh, I've played it. Of course,
okay.
I've played the Game Boy Advance version of Donkey Kong Country 3.
Because you just said you've never played Conker's Pocket Tales or Donkey Konga 2, so I'm questioning your credentials, Dustin.
You're wondering what the holes in my DKU expertise are.
Yeah, but you played the Game Boy Advance version of DKC3. So, Swanky's Dash, would you care to take a stab at explaining what Swanky's Dash is compared to Swanky's Sideshow?
It might be a little hard just because even though I have played it, I think I did Swanky's Dash once and I was like, all right, I think that's fine. I don't think I need to do it again. But you're basically just in like a pipe collecting stars, right? You got to collect the right amount of stars to win.
So, yeah, what Swanky's Dash is, I think the best way to describe it, it's a virtual reality chamber, some sort of holodome that, like holodeck dome. It's a big metallic, like space age, futuristic looking building. Like this isn't barrel shaped. This looks like some sort of I don't know, Imperial Re-Education Center in Star Wars. This is odd looking, but yeah, it's a virtual reality game. The interior of it, you can actually see. You go up this ramp into this chair, and presumably like this virtual reality headset goes over top of you, and that simulates you running through a tunnel where like this 360-degree tunnel that you run all over collecting stars. And you've got to watch out for these spiked mines that will blow you up.
Yeah, this is a little ahead of its time. It's before the big VR craze nowadays. If I go to the mall, we still have a mall out here, believe it or not. But they have stuff like this where you can just pay like a fee, go in and just play VR games.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe I get from this. Back in 2005?
Well, technically 1996, because
that's true.
That's when the Donkey Kong Country 3 story took place. But yes.
It was really ahead of its time.
Yeah, 2006 is when the GBA version came out, of course. Yeah, this is weird, and I don't like this as much.
Yeah.
It's also worth pointing out that they reverted Swanky, because he no longer has a Sideshow, they just use his Donkey Kong Country 2 model. Complete with a damn greasy toupee that we hoped sank with Crocodile Isle, but no.
Yeah, this goes totally against our canon.
Yeah, apparently he made it off Crocodile Isle with his toupee. He only had...
Some habits are hard to break.
He only had a few possessions, the rings on his finger, his jacket, and his toupee. He probably used the toupee as a flotation device.
It came in useful for him. It saved his life.
So, I don't like this as much. I think, like... I can accept that it happened. I can accept it as part of the canon. But compared to Swanky's Sideshow, compared to Swanky at this time of his life, I think Swanky's Dash strains credibility just a little bit. Oh yeah, also, at the same time he was operating Swanky's Sideshow, a traveling sideshow, right out back he had a big virtual reality dome.
You just didn't notice at the time.
And the one thing I like about Swanky's Dash, I like Swanky's Dash. It's fun enough. I don't think it's as fun as Swanky's Sideshow, but the one little detail I like, and I think that they came up with this because they just didn't want to model him running from behind, but Swanky Kong does not let Kiddy Kong use Swanky's Dash because, and I quote, "Sorry, Kitty. No minors allowed. But don't be sad. It's not all that bad. Now it's up to you, Dixie."
I like how that's his defense. He says, "Hey, don't be sad. It's not all that bad." It's like I didn't consider it like that.
Don't be sad. Dixie gets to have the fun.
I guess now that you say that, I guess it isn't all that bad.
Also, like, how old is Dixie at this point? What does Swanky consider a minor?
Yeah, that's true. I guess I never really thought. I know DK Vine kind of has their theories on Kong age.
Yeah.
And like where they are at certain points. But yeah, they never like canonically say what age these characters are.
Right.
And I guess this says Dixie is not a minor.
Well, at least according to Swanky standards, and maybe we should just leave that lie where it is. Yeah, I don't know. I think that Swanky's Sideshow works for me because it's a traveling show. And I could even buy the fact that maybe he has multiple tents. And rather than like tearing down the tent and rebuilding it, like every time the Kongs enter a new area, he just bounces from tent to tent. But the fact that he also has this big VR dome, like I like this idea that Swanky, full of pluckiness, rebounds after losing his studio, losing his credibility, getting blacklisted from TV, and he's like, damn it, I'm going to take my show on the road. I'm going to bring the entertainment to the people. I'm going to go to the Northern Hemisphere, this hot vacation destination for Kongs and people across the Rare Archipelago. I'm going to go there, set up a sideshow to really, get that lucrative Lake Orangutanga tourist dollar. And you know what? It's not going to be as glamorous. I'm not going to make as much money from it, but it's going to bring me joy. I'm going to find contentment in life.
You might be able to stop my TV show, but you can't stop the party.
Yeah, but I'm also going to build the state-of-the-art VR holodeck behind every sideshow. That's also going to be there. Like, how much money did Swanky have? I guess maybe he had some money still in savings, and he just, spent it all. He went all in on this endeavor.
Yeah, you know what would make me able to buy it?
What?
Is if by some convoluted logic, instead of being, I think it's just the presentation that I don't buy, like this just full metallic, futuristic VR setup.
Uh-huh.
What if it was just really stupid, wooden VR?
Yeah, or what if
it would at least fit in with everything else?
Yeah, it should have been more like a really cheap, video arcade, or something that would be more along the lines of, rather than why does it have to be VR at all? Why isn't it just this tube that Swanky is cranking, rotating, like a carnival ride or something? It doesn't have to be virtual reality. It doesn't really fit the time period nor the character of Swanky, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It just feels so out of place for this series and for the Kongs.
Yeah, and it really kind of goes against the grain of DKC 3, which is a lot more woodsy and down to earth in some ways. I know this is, the game with banana birds, and it first wanted to introduce a concept of a rocket barrel, but still, it's... I don't know. I feel like VR would be something that Donkey Kong 64 would introduce. It doesn't really fit DKC3's vibe, but hey, it happened. It's canon. Swanky's Dash is a part of Swanky's Sideshow. Although Swanky's Sideshow, I think, it is the main umbrella of his enterprise. Swanky's Dash is just this thing he also runs, and maybe he can't...
Kind of this thing on the side.
Yeah, maybe it's not something that's as permanent, the power it takes to run it. He can only keep it going a little bit, and I don't know. But this is Swanky's actual last appearance for several years. And that doesn't mean we weren't clued in on what Swanky's been up to. It just means that Swanky stopped showing up himself. But we did have a couple of appearances of Swanky's Sideshow post buyout. This is something
that's crazy to me.
Yeah, not a lot of people know this detail because this is only something that cropped up in Cameo games, of all things. And of all games that I'm going to bring up next, I don't think anybody, unless you're really steeped in Donkey Kong knowledge, you would guess that the next game I'm going to bring up in character witness Swanky Kong is Mario Party 5.
Saw that one coming a mile away.
Yeah.
Obvious.
Because Mario Party 5, Dustin, I don't know how well versed you are in the drama and the scandal of the Mario Party series from beginning to end. But Mario Party 5 is kind of infamous with Donkey Kong fans.
It was the first one where you couldn't play as Donkey Kong. That correct?
Yes, that is absolutely correct. It is the one where Donkey Kong was shunted from playable character status. But they didn't just remove him from the game and make it so like we didn't have to buy the games. I can just ignore Mario Party now. Donkey Kong's not in it anymore. Later. No, it's, yeah, Donkey Kong, I can't play as this character that I'm buying these games for, but don't worry, he's in there as an NPC.
Yeah, we're forcing you to still cover these and acknowledge his diminished role.
Yeah, so Donkey Kong became the counterpoint to Bowser on the game boards. So you'd have the Bowser spaces that you could land on, which would usually spell ruin and calamity, not just for you, but for most of the players on the board. But Mario Party 5 introduced the good counterpart to that, the Donkey Kong spaces, where if you land on the Donkey Kong space, you get to play a Donkey Kong minigame, which are Donkey Kong themed games that can bring fortune and glory, because Donkey Kong is just a stand-up guy.
I like that at least. It's better than bringing him back to in a villainous role, really coming to fuck you up. At least this is like, hey, no, DK is cool. You want to land on his spaces.
Yeah, I wasn't happy about this turn of events, but I did like that they framed Donkey Kong as the heroic rival to Bowser during this era of Mario Party, because this is the era of Donkey Kong where Donkey Kong's identity was kind of up in the air. The buyout era was just sort of like anything goes as far as Donkey Kong goes, and we could have Donkey Kong as a villain in Mario versus Donkey Kong game, or a misunderstood villain, as usually was the case. We could have Donkey Kong as a hero in like DK King of Swing, and it's like, well, how is he going to be portrayed in this game? And thankfully, even though he wasn't playable anymore, he was still very much a hero. And the Donkey Kong minigame I specifically want to address in Mario Party 5 is called Banana Punch. It's a play on Banana Bunch, but in this case, you're punching. You're
That's clever.
It's so clever. So
I can see why Nintendo's still around.
Yeah, it was really touch and go there for a while.
Wait a minute, guys. I got it. Banana Punch. You see, it's like Banana Bunch.
The company is saved. So all of the Donkey Kong minigames take place in a jungle environment. Now, these are ostensibly supposed to be the Congo jungle. Now, when I say that, though, you have to keep in mind the plot to Mario Party 5. Mario Party 5 doesn't take place in the real world, per se. It takes place in a dream realm, the Dream Depot. So all of the boards, all of the mini games are actually manifestations of our subconscious, or the subconscious of the characters, brought to life in this place where dreams are real. I think the implication is that this is where you go when you dream.
Right.
Right. And maybe your dreams are like, it's a half and half, like your subconscious carries you away to here, and then it comes to life. You're living out your dreams here, and then you get shunted back to your body when you wake up.
Oh man, in this mini game, I'm back in high school and I can't remember my locker combination.
Yeah, it's amazing how many mini games are based on that. Oh man, I forgot to attend this mini game all semester. Oh my god, and today's the day of the test.
Yeah, the game is about 75% high school mini games.
Yeah. So in Banana Punch, you are in this dream representation of the Congo jungle. And there is a pile of trees, like logs, like from palm trees in the one corner, perhaps manifesting Donkey Kong's fears of industrialization and deforestation, his home getting destroyed by the Kremlins. That's on the left. On the right is a familiar carnival tent that could plausibly be Swanky's Sideshow. It looks very similar to Swanky's Sideshow, right down to the top of it being the same golden ball tip that we see in Donkey Kong Country 3.
Right, and like how else would Donkey Kong, if this is in Donkey Kong's dream, then it's got to be based off of things he's seen, so why else would he have a tent in his mind if not for Swanky's Sideshow?
Yeah, is he dreaming of his brother?
Oh my goodness gracious.
He's like, oh, hi, brother.
That classic Donkey Kong catchphrase.
Now, I would almost, argue that maybe this isn't supposed to be Swanky's Sideshow, because we've seen tents. Like, Candy's save point is sort of a tent. Like maybe it's him dreaming of his lady, of his special romantic partner. Right. However, this tent, and actually, I think nearly identical to the way it's depicted here, it appears a little bit later in another Mario game, another Cameo game, Mario Superstar Baseball. And this time around, it's explicitly spelled out to be Swanky's Sideshow, because Swanky appears on the wooden sign right underneath it.
I love that. So I had no idea about the tent in Mario Party 5, but I did know about this one. I thought this was great.
Yeah, this was incredible on the DK Vine forum back when Superstar Baseball, when we were seeing screenshots of it, because, this is still like the full-on angst of the buyout era. Right. Jungle Beat, they don't want to use rare characters, not fresh anymore.
Really worried about the direction the series was going to go in. Right,
and which seems silly in retrospect, but at the time, we were in uncharted waters, and we were also younger, and we just let the angst and the drama carry us away. So, Mario Superstar Baseball, the Donkey Kong Jungle Baseball Stadium, has numerous references to Donkey Kong lore. It even has a naughty millstone laying in the background, which is just a great touch. But sure enough, Swanky's Sideshow is set up here in the Congo jungle. So I do think like Swanky's Sideshow is primarily stationed in the Northern Hemisphere, but in this case, Swanky decided to parlay the fact that the Mushroom Kingdom was coming in with this big baseball World Series or whatever. And so Swanky was like, I should set up my sideshow in the Congo jungle and get some toads to play my games. And so
like the Mario is going to be here. I better set up shop.
Right. This is a lucrative deal, and maybe I can then expand my enterprises into the Mushroom Kingdom from this. But so this is our only real glimpse of Swanky's Sideshow post 1996, post Donkey Kong Country 3, and we can see he's actually expanded even outward, even beyond Swanky's Dash at this point. He's got a lot of different attractions beyond just the ball throwing and the VR. He's got something new called the DK cannon. The DK cannon, which seems to be a big barrel cannon that's just there for your amusement.
Just there for funsies.
Yeah, and we know this is related to Swanky's Sideshow because it's on the sign with Swanky on it. It's the render, the DKC3 render of Swanky in his Sideshow garb, and he's like gesturing towards the DK Cannon logo. And what's interesting is, of course, Mario Kart Double Dash introduced the Donkey Cannon in DK Mountain, the Donkey Kong track in that game. And in later appearances, they renamed it I believe, the DK Cannon there. So, is there a correlation between that and this? Did Swanky take the idea of the DK Cannon from the Donkey Cannon and make a smaller version of it for himself? I think he did.
Yeah, he says, you all know the famous DK Cannon? Well, here you can enjoy it for yourself here.
Yeah, it's something for the whole family they can cram themselves into and get fired out. Like, oh, you're ready
Launch yourself across the stadium.
It's like, if you want to get away from Swanky's Sideshow really quickly, have I got the way?
Hey, if you don't like me, guess what? I got some good news for you.
Yeah, get the hell out of here. There are also what appear to be a giant facsimile of the DK bongos right next to his tent.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and so I like this idea that he built this enormous recreation of the DK bongos that maybe you can try. You know the movie Big with Tom Hanks?
Oh boy, do I? You think he has these bongos for a similar reason? You can't dance on them, but boy, you can play these big bongos.
I think you can dance on them. I think it's specifically designed to be like Tom Hanks on the foot piano in Big, except in this case,
you use your whole body to play on it.
Yeah, it would be Tom Hanks coming in, doing some fancy footwork on the DK bongos.
I want to see that cut.
So that way, you can have fun at Swanky's Sideshow, even if you don't like competition. You can make some beautiful music with your wiggling little toes, those sexy, sexy toes of yours. Or
the best kind.
You can just jam yourself up in the DK cannon and fire yourself into the wild blue yonder.
I love that. He's capitalizing on the people who might not be huge fans of baseball, who might not want to see Princess Peach hit a ball into the stands. You can come and fire yourself out of a cannon instead.
That's right. So that's the last little insight we've had into Swanky's business dealings. Presumably he's still running the Sideshow. Presumably he's still having a really good time. Still off TV, but it's okay. He never really got into the internet. He never became a YouTuber, a Twitch streamer. He doesn't have a podcast. I mean, maybe he does. Maybe he
seems like a podcast guy.
Maybe when we catch back up with Swanky, we'll have a greater insight into how Swanky is navigating the 21st century. But at least as far as we know, he's still doing the Sideshow, and he's still he's still having a good time with his life. But we did see Swanky one more time in the video games in 2018, because Swanky, like so many others, died in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and became a disembodied spirit. Don't worry, he got better, as did everybody else. Those deaths were reversed, like in the Marvel. The snap was undone and everybody came back, but
unfortunately Wrinkly was already dead, so they couldn't bring her fully back.
Yeah,
this is as good as it gets.
When she said, "I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark," she meant it.
A little more serious.
Yeah, so Swanky was a spirit in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Here's a little fun detail Dustin. So Swanky's render that they used for the spirit, his canonical appearance in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, he was back in the Donkey Kong Country 2 jacket, but because it was the render, he wasn't wearing that awful toupee. So at some point after 1996, he did say, you know what? This toupee isn't working for me. I'm going to take this damn thing off. And so
I want people to love me for me.
Yeah, so even though he still wears the DKC2 jacket from time to time, he's put the toupee away in a box in his closet, and he's just going au natural.
Right, he can't completely get rid of it. It saved his life at the end of DKC2.
You never know when the island he's on is going to blow up next.
It happens so frequently for him.
Yeah, poor Swanky. He survives the destruction of Crocodile Isle. He gets blacklisted, and then he becomes a disembodied spirit when the multiverse of video games collapses in on itself.
You know what? I at that point, I would just be glad to be included.
Well, he was included because in the spirit battle against Swanky Kong, he possesses a clone body of Donkey Kong, perhaps his brother. He got to actually live what it would be like if Cranky wasn't as disappointed with him as he had been. Oh, what now, Dad? I'm now my brother. How does this feel?
Are you proud of me now?
So, Swanky in Donkey's body uses a banana gun. That's a little thing he has at first. And it's like, oh, watch out. He's going to squirt you with that banana. And the rule in Swanky's spirit battle is that the Beast Ball is in play. And the Beast Ball is the teleporting baseball in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I'm sure you're well acquainted with it at this point, Dustin, having played World of Light for the last 7 months.
I don't even know what a regular baseball is. I only know Beast Ball.
So I do like that they reference the Donkey Kong Country 3 Swanky's Sideshow minigame with the baseball.
Yeah, I like that a lot, especially since the render you get is from DKC2, but that calls from DKC3. You get the best of Swanky.
Yeah, because it's not like, his spirit battle would incorporate asking you questions.
That would be fun, though. I'd be down for that.
Or putting you in a VR tube. Yeah, and then the stage you fight him on is Congo Jungle N64. And the music is Funky's Fugue. So you get a little bit of a mixture, like because Swanky's music isn't in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you still get music from one of the Kong helpers.
Yeah, and it's in the Congo jungle, where he, of course, grew up and potentially lived in his lost year, his missing year, 1995 to 1996.
Right, what a reference for Sakurai to pull.
Yeah, he's so good. He's so knowledgeable about everything.
Yeah, he knew all about that in-between year.
Even the stuff we make up. All right, well, we do have a call from a dedicated Swankyaholic.
One of the many Swankyaholics.
You know what? I had to limit it to just one call because, honestly, if we were here playing the 70 to 80 calls I did get, this episode would just be ridiculous. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have to limit it to the very best call we got. So congratulations, caller. You are the very best out of the 80-plus calls we received about Swanky Kong.
You win the title of canonical Swanky #1 fan.
That is true. That is true. It is canon now. Now, if you would like to call the DK Vine hotline, you can always do so by dialing 1-202-630-VINE. That's 8463. You can call us day or night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The line is always open. Now, usually we only take calls relating to the topic at hand. So when we announce an episode, you can call in and say, this is what I feel about this topic. But you can call us about whatever, and maybe we'll play your call on a future callsack episode. let's go ahead and play Swanky Kong fan number 1.
Hey guys, Rick here. Oh, Swanky. You know, he always came across as like the super fun uncle, you know, who, well, that actually might be the case, just judging by the way he looks. And you know, he's this light in the darkness, showing up in the most dangerous of areas with his little game show hut for Diddy and Dixie to play around with. And I always thought the questions were honestly really fair and fun to answer. And yeah, you know, Swanky, right? I always loved how the Kongversation made me think of him as like comparing him to Job from Arrested Development. That's just the perfect comparison. All right, guys, can't wait to listen. Thanks. Later.
Thank you for the call, Rick. Swanky's truest, bluest fan.
I'm glad you love Swanky so much.
How could you not?
Yeah, right?
Dustin, you are an aficionado of animation, of
That's true.
Of voice actors, even. Now, yeah, we here on the Kongversation at DK Vine have always maintained that, as Rick said, Will Arnett, who played Joe Bluth on Arrested Development, would make the ideal Swanky Kong. I want to know what your thoughts were. Who do you think would be the perfect casting for Swanky Kong?
Ooh, I'd have to really give it some thought, but I'd be down for Will Arnett to voice him. I could picture that, like, he's kind of got that, showman type voice. Like, he's a little gruff, but, you know, he's the voice of the guy on the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup commercial.
That's right, and we already said, you know, it's like chocolate and peanut butter going together.
Yeah, I can't think of anything more fitting.
Yeah, I really can't hear Swanky Kong as anybody but Will Arnett. Like, that is the one fan casting I'm completely wed to. Now, then again, I never thought Seth Rogen would voice Donkey Kong, and I guess I was okay with that. So, you know, I guess I'm malleable, but, you know, I don't know. Like, if they announce...
But it would be your number one pick.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, I feel like that would just be the perfect vibe for the character. Just because even Joe Bluth in Arrested Development is basically the Swanky Kong to Michael Bluth's Donkey Kong. So I just see like that. It's just perfect casting. And of course, Swanky Kong came first. He's been around longer than Job, but for me, they're almost inseparable. One, it's just Gorilla Job with a bit more heart, a bit less of a creep, but still just creepy enough for the kids. You know, like...
like it has that very thin layer of sleaze.
Yeah, just a little bit of grease along the camera lens, a little bit of Vaseline, and you're like, ugh, what is that? But not enough to repulse you entirely.
Right. He's an off-putting showman who wants to make a good impression, but you're a little on edge with him.
Yeah. And he knows 100 ways to meet girls, so watch out.
That's right. He knows what he's talking about.
So, wrapping things up on this character witness, which, by the way, if you were wondering if we were going to get over 2.5 hours on Swanky Kong, a character who's only really been in 2 games, sure showed you.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I'm very surprised we hit the 2.5 hour mark.
Dustin, if I'm honest, I could talk about Swanky all night long.
That's true. You know what? I could too, but you know, I got plans with the guys.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I hope you talk about Swanky
Otherwise,
Kong.
I would love nothing more.
I hope you talk about Swanky Kong with the guys.
Oh, I'll make them talk about it.
Okay, good. So, wrapping things up, I do have to ask, looking at Swanky Kong, as he is, as we know him, like even just ignoring our fan conjecture that we went into this episode, is Swanky the perfect epitome of what makes a Donkey Kong character truly great? Because I was thinking about this before this episode. Swanky Kong is a disgraced game show host who became a traveling sideshow carnival barker. And he exists as a Donkey Kong character, a reoccurring Donkey Kong character. And I'm like, is that type of character wholly unique to, if not the Donkey Kong series, then the DKU? Like, would we see anybody like Swanky Kong outside of Donkey Kong? Like, would there ever be a Super Mario character like Swanky Kong?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple in there, but they're not like super common. They're not like regular characters. I mean, I guess you could make the argument Swanky isn't necessarily either, but I think like any characters who are like Swanky Kong and Mario are usually one-shots.
Right, and they're usually like Toads or Goombas or Koopa Troopas, where they're not really given a defined personality, usually. Not always, but
they're there to serve their purpose in gameplay-wise.
Where Swanky is really more malleable. He started off as a game show host, but they're like, he could be more than a game show host. He could also have a tight vest.
Yeah, he's got that going for him.
And I just love that we have characters like Swanky Kong, that in the third game of the series, the second console game, you know, it's like, oh yeah, here's a game show host named Swanky Kong. Deal with it. Figure it out. But it's just so weird and so eccentric and so uniquely like rare. And that sense of humor and just... We're gonna take this way to earn extra lives, or later like coins and bananas, and we're just going to assign this very flamboyant personality to it. And that's what I love, is just taking these things that could be just completely functional sans character and assigning a character to it and making it so full of personality that you find it endearing, and then later in your life you will do over 2.5 hours of a podcast on this one character. Like, that level of dedication is what comes from having characters like this. And that's why, like, Donkey Kong fans value characters, I think, above all else, really. I mean, we obsess over them. We fan theorize about them. You know, we don't stop thinking about them. And that's why... just like, oh, we don't need these characters because you can just assign all of these moves to this one character. You can just give all this functionality to one character. Why have 4 characters when you can have just one character doing it all? Why even need a character in there at all? Like this very Nintendo design philosophy that creeps in after Rare. And it's like, hold up though. Isn't it just more fun to have this character behind it, because then you just have this completely new IP that you can then do things with, that you can celebrate. Like, maybe video game design 101 isn't always the best way to go if it doesn't lead you down roads that give you characters like Swanky Kong.
Right. It's a balancing act, because you don't want things to get too complicated, but then if you make them too simple, you miss out on having fun characters like Swanky Kong in there. We wouldn't be doing this podcast.
Yeah, that's why, as much as I love retros to Donkey Kong Country games, I mean, I adore them, I do think some of the philosophy behind them, like, oh, we only need Cranky Kong as the only Kong helper. We only need Rambi as the only playable or rideable animal buddy. And I'm like, because that kind of thought wouldn't have given us Swanky Kong back in the day.
Exactly.
So, yeah, Dustin, do you know something? This is embarrassing. When I was 5 years old, in kindergarten, we had to reveal what our dream job was. And maybe I've shared this before on the Kongversation or on DK Vine, I can't remember, but I was like, I don't know what I want to be. This is before I knew I wanted to do something creative, like be a writer or be a Donkey Kong journalist. So the only thing I could think of that would bring me joy in my 5-year-old brain was to be a game show host.
That's such a fun... Like, I could see someone wanting to be a game show host. You know, you bring the smiles, you bring the laughs and the cheers. But that's such an interesting thing for a 5-year-old to want to be.
Right? It's kind of gross. But yeah, so like we had to draw a picture of us in our dream job when we're adults. And this is, you know, back when we thought there was going to be a future in the job market and that, you know, capitalism was going to eat us alive. But, you know, that we wouldn't have to have side gigs and just beg for money online as we do these days. But, yeah, I was like, yeah, I want to be a game show host. And we had to then dress up for career day. And so I wore a blazer and, you know, like I had like, note cards that I like was reading off like fabulous prizes. And you know,
that's hilarious. I can just imagine little Hyle in his little game show host costume surrounded by like people who wanted to be like firemen and like other typical jobs that kids might want.
Right.
And then here you come just looking totally different from everyone else.
Yeah,
that's great.
There was like 6 or 7 firemen in my kindergarten class, and I wanted to be a game show host. Do you know, outside of the Count, who my favorite Sesame Street character was?
Who?
So when I was a kid, there was a reoccurring Sesame Street character named Guy Smiley.
I knew it. That's a name I haven't heard in many a year.
Guy Smiley was the Muppet game show host on Sesame Street.
Man, I don't think they even use him. I don't remember the last time they've used Guy Smiley.
Probably not, but yeah, most kids would say their favorite Sesame Street character, Elmo, right? Maybe Grover if they're of a certain age. Maybe even Kermit the Frog if they're around for the OG Sesame Street, like the original incarnation. No, the Count. I like the vampire, and I like the game show host. So, you know, this has been part of my DNA for a long time. So it's no wonder that Swanky Kong endeared himself to me. And it's no wonder that I've always been on the same wavelength as the creative team behind Donkey Kong Country at Rare. You know, like this was all meant to be. Like I was just their fan who was just waiting for them to come along. And I know people think that being a Donkey Kong journalist is a very stupid career decision, but at the very least, Dustin, I outgrew the childish desire to be a game show. Well, nobody has found the missing episode in the Kongversation Season 6. That's right. There's an entire installment of the Kongversation that's been cleverly hidden and never heard by public ears. If you're the one who can follow the clues and find it, you could win a fabulous prize. Johnny, tell them what they'll win. Johnny, tell them what they'll win. Johnny!
Johnny, where are you? Where are you at?
I forgot your name was Dustin. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Anyway, it's like an autographed Sea of Thieves #1 or something. I don't know.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.